once again. I'm Joe, this is Embedded. So I've always really been interested in photojournalism because photojournalists have to make choices about what content they choose to put on the page. There's not room for everything, and sometimes they have to make decisions between what they think was best representative of their experience and what is a better quality picture. So Embedded is a VR photography game about journalistic choice. In the game, you play as a photojournalist embedded with a team of soldiers in the Vietnam War, and you witness history, capture what you see, and then decide what millions back home will think of the conflict. So there's two main phases of gameplay. We have shooting photographs, where it's an on-rails experience where you're taking pictures of what you see, and asking questions where you're interviewing soldiers and choosing different dialogue options. In the shooting photographs, it's an on-rails ride-along experience, so you don't control where you go. You're just in a Jeep moving along and taking photos of what you see. And the photos are judged based on their sentiment and their quality, so whether their sentiment is pro-war, anti-war, somewhere in the middle, and their quality, so their technical merit, how well they follow the rule of thirds. And at the end of the section, you choose which photos you're going to publish in your newspaper. So you could be taking images of civilians fleeing a burning village, which would be really anti-war, or you could be taking pictures of soldiers doing heroic things, which would be on the pro-war side. The inspiration for this part comes from Pokemon Snap, which has very similar mechanics, completely different tone, but a lot of the inspiration for the mechanic came from this part. In the asking questions section, you're interviewing soldiers, and you have 3 different options for questions that are all different phrasings of the same type of idea that are from like a pro-war, neutral, and anti-war slant. And depending on which types of questions you ask, you get different answers, and those quotes go in your newspaper article at the end of the game. So that's some concept art. So at the end, you publish an article that has text that is reflective of the sentiment and the types of questions the sentiment of your photos and the types of questions that you've asked. So if you took all anti-war photos the whole time, you're going to get an article that has very anti-war text and headline. If you took pro-war articles, you get the opposite of that. And the prestige of the newspaper depends on the quality of photos that you submitted. So if you took really great photos, you end up in a prestigious national paper that has really great grammar and descriptions of stuff. And if you took poor quality photos, you end up in some local daily paper, and the text isn't as nice to read. And there's this tension between choosing between the quality and the sentiment. So the player feels like, oh, do I choose the photo that looks better technically, or the photo that represents my experience better, or maybe you got lucky and you were able to do both those things. So we've been using Unity to develop for VR, and we're on Vive and Rift here. Overall, the on-rails aspect has kept our asset count low, so we're only doing one path through the jungle. We don't have to do a whole jungle. Our goal was to have 3 levels by the end of AGP, which I'll go into in a second. And all of our sentiment analysis is done with authoring, so we manually assign subjects in the world a sentiment value, and then when we take a picture, we do an analysis on the 3D space to see which subjects are in the frame, and then assign a sentiment based on that. And the photo quality analysis is done doing a similar technique where we analyze the physical space. So we're not doing any image processing, but we analyze the physical space, see where subjects' body parts are in the frame, and assign a score based on the rule of thirds, which is like this. And so the rule of thirds says that when a subject is aligned on one of these thirds lines, then it's a good photo. So that's kind of the heuristic that our program uses. So some of the learnings from doing this project over the past 9 months to a year, I think the biggest thing is that 3D artists are unicorns. I mean, that is certain. I'm sure, like in most people's projects, that has been the biggest bottleneck, is trying to find 3D artists who are committed to the project that will stay with you. Halfway through our project, our lead artist fled the country, And I guess that sounds worse than what I meant, but he left. He's not in America anymore, willingly, and he just told us like when we came back from winter break, oh, by the way, I'm in Brazil for the rest of the time. So
they don't have the internet in Brazil.
Well, he was like, I can help you though, and I'll still help you from Brazil. And I said, great. And then I got back to him with some tasks, and he said, oh, I'm at sea for the next 2 months, so. And I don't have internet. So he responded to that like 2 weeks after I asked him to. Yeah, it was the whole thing. So yeah, having 3D artists that are committed to the project is really rare, and like when you get those people, I think it's really important to treat them really well and give them interesting stuff to work on and find out what they want to do so that you keep their interest and keep them working on the project. Motion capture will not solve your problem. So, from the start, we only had like 1 or 2 3D artists and only one person that was like good at animation, and then he went to Brazil. And so to make up for that, we were like, oh, well, I'm friends with someone who's a TA for the motion capture class in the cinema school, and he gave me access to the motion capture studio, and we were able to do some mocap sessions. But then what they don't tell you is that cleaning up that mocap data after the fact is a nightmare. And it's, for the most part it's fine, but then you still get like stuttery stuff, and you need someone to go in and smooth out all of those stutters, and it's extremely difficult, and I did not have time to do it myself, so we just had a bunch of dirty mocap data for like half the semester, and then finally got one person who's a student in the mocap class to help us clean stuff, and she's helping us, but she's one person, she's still learning, and so we don't even actually, today to showcase, we don't have any mocap stuff to show, but we will by the showcase. But yeah, like we thought that it would be, oh, we don't have to do any real animation, we just have to do mocap, and no, that was not, it wasn't like a magic pill. So having a unified design vision helps. So it was really useful that like everyone on the team I thought was really on the same page about the design, and everyone had a very clear vision of where we wanted the game to go, and we were just all on the same page with that. Not to say that we didn't have different ideas about specific things, but having that unified vision helped us negotiate different ideas and find the best solution to problems. And I think being able to get your team all on the same page early on is really helpful for that. Sound is important. So, it seems obvious, but I feel like it's something that we often forget about, is that that sound aspect of games like puts your polish up so much for I feel like relatively small effort on an engineering side. It's like, oh, you just put an audio source in there and play this clip of war ambience, and all of a sudden it really feels like you're there, and you can add extra we have extra things in our sound that is not represented visually, but it still makes it feel like, oh, there's bombings going on, even though there's no planes flying over, there's no actual bombs being dropped, but you still get that feeling of that urgency. Player feedback versus artistic intent. So I feel like sometimes in games when we talk about playtesting, we emphasize too much about conforming our design to players, and I think that there's a lot of merit in that, but I also think that there's a lot of merit in artistic intent and putting your vision forward. So you have to know who your target audience is, I think. So we play tested with some people that totally did not get the game at all and weren't into the idea, and their feedback I thought was not good. It wasn't useful, but maybe if we had gone the direction of trying to just please everyone, then we would have gotten a blander game. But by just following the feedback of our target audience, we were really able to find what was good and help people who get it more. And there's this idea a lot that came up in our feedback was fun versus engaging, and so I also think that we use the word fun too much in games. Because not all games are fun, and I don't think all games should be fun. Not all movies are fun movies to watch, but they're still engaging experiences. And I think it's more important to keep the player's attention and make them invested in the experience and want to move forward, which is not necessarily a fun or which to me connotes happy experience. And so I think that's also like something to think about when you're designing a game like this. So, like I said in my slides earlier, I thought we would have 3 levels by the end of this. That was a total overestimation, and I mean that's something we figured out early on. I was like, okay, well that's not really happening. But I think for future AGP teams, I don't know if there's anyone who's leading a team next to you or anything, but like I think that's something to keep in mind is that you are almost definitely not going to get a full game out of AGP, but you can get a really awesome vertical slice, and so I think it's really important to focus on that vertical slice and just polish that as much as possible, because then that vertical slice can also inform the rest of your game. If you decide to keep working, you can take that vertical slice and your learnings from that, and making the second level is often easier than making the first level. So if you can make that first level great, you can move on to the second level a lot easier. And you know, I feel like we did it. You know, we still have more to go here. We're actually showcasing at VRLA on May 4th and 5th before the showcase. We're accepted into their indie zone area, which like they give you a free booth if you apply, and so we got that, which is really cool. But you know, I feel like we ultimately accomplished our goals, and we have a really cool thing that I feel like a lot of times when I pitch this to people, they're like, oh, I love the idea, but I don't think that will ever actually happen, or like, I don't know how that's going to actually work in a game. And I think that we did it, and it's good. And you know, it's not, like I said, it's a vertical slice, it's not a full game, but I think we did it, and I think we're all really, really proud of that. So that's, this is our team. You know, you've heard me say this a million times, but everyone's been great. And Yael is here. She was our photojournalist consultant. She was part of a Pulitzer Prize winning team of the LA Times and helped us out a lot with like practical information about what it's like to be a photojournalist. And yeah, so Fred is the one who fled to Brazil. So
3 minutes.
yeah, let's go to the demo. Yeah, Khan's gonna play it back there for us. Yep. Is the sound working? I mean, there's no sound in the scene, so. Okay. We'll find out soon. There it is. Alice, hi Grandpa, the photography assignment about rule of thirds. Can you show me an example photo for reference?
This is not rule of thirds.
So yeah, we have this highlight to show the player like what is and is not rule of thirds. So when it's green, it's good. Thanks, I'll try this out for my homework. Hi honey, found some of your old photography stuff from the glory days. Thought you might like to take a look at it before we put it in storage. So we have this music that changes or adds tracks based on the sentiment. So this is like, these are anti-war pictures, and it has this distorted guitar playing over it. That's a pro-war photo, so it has this flute and marching drum.
What's red square, green square mean?
That's the quality of the photo, so it corresponds with like all of the other rule of thirds things that you've seen, and then that tells you the overall quality of that picture.
Hey kid, it's Brennan. I just got the pictures you sent over. I wouldn't say they're anything special, but they'll get the job done. This doesn't tell much of a story. Seems like business as usual over there. Casualties on both sides, I suppose. War is war. Don't forget about those interviews we scheduled. Don't be late. Get something good.
So yeah, the editor gives you different feedback based on what kinds of photos you submit, so.
Salutations. For my acts of bravery and leadership in Korea. That and a lot of hard work.
So you can ask 3 different questions that are all different phrasings of the same idea, and that first one, like the font kind of indicates what the sentiment of the question is. So that first one's an anti-war, the second one's neutral, the third is pro.
We are spreading freedom and stopping the scourge of communism. Anything justifies that. Well, sometimes you gotta break a few eggs to make an omelet. It'll be worth it when they can live their lives freely. Back to work.
Hello there. We heard that there was some Viet Cong hiding in the village, so we did what had to be done and flushed them out. There weren't any. Out here, everyone is the enemy. You can't be too careful. They need our help. Without us, this whole country would be commies. Bye.
Yeah. Look, Uncle Sam decided he needed me, and this sounded better than prison. But I'm still wondering if I made the right decision. I'm not proud of much. I just want to go home. I guess I'm glad to have met some of my fellow soldiers, but I wish we had met on better circumstances. My dad is. He fought in Korea. Thinks we have to do whatever it takes to stop the commies. My mama wishes it would just end. Stay safe.
So now you can see you have an article on the wall there. And I think the Daily Post is like our middle tier newspaper. And it's a neutral article, so it says Vietnamese and American casualties in My Lai clash, and it kind of presents it as like, in it, I mean,
The moral objective.
neutral is subjective, but you know, it presents it as like, oh, there's casualties on both sides, and both sides have losses, and yeah.
Time.
All right, yeah, that's the game.